The OSG Sports app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. All you got to do, install the OSG Sports app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, lacrosse. Let's get this done. Get the OSG Sports app today.
Welcome to the College Football Debrief with your host, Anthony Goldman and John Wilkerson.
Tommy Palmer, thanks, and welcome to the College Football Debrief. John Wilkerson, Anthony Goldman here with you. As always, we appreciate you listening to us on Spreaker, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, wherever you're catching your podcasts, iTunes. We appreciate you listening in. So, Anthony, we had some pretty significant games in Week 2. I want to start with Clemson, Texas A&M, because here I am boasting. I think Texas A&M's got a really good shot of pulling off the upset in Death Valley, and not really understanding how mentally tough and strong this Clemson team is. And, you know, when you look at the score, it doesn't resonate a dominant or kind of a butt kicking, but in a way it was.
Yeah, I think you got to give all the credit to Brent Venables, John, and that defensive scheme that they had. I mean, it was obvious they come out in this game and they decided we learned from the mistakes we made last year of letting Kellen Mond sit in the pocket, make his reads, and do his checkdowns. And they were not going to let Kellen Mond beat them. And to their credit, that was one of the more aggressive defensive plans I think I've seen from Brent Venables.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we spoke last week about Brent Venables. He picks his spots, but he's pretty methodical. He's not very overly aggressive, but he was in this game. And it got to Kellen Mond. It shook him very badly. And, you know, a lot of people are talking about the Texas A&M run game. I don't know what you think, John. I actually thought the run game for Texas A&M did pretty well. I thought they did well enough to help them win, but you got to have balance. You can't just run the ball on a team like Clemson. And once Deshaun Corbin went down for Texas A&M, now your depth at running back is down, and you can't block anybody, and you have no holes, and you're one-dimensional. So the offense kind of folded from there, but it all started with Kellen Mond, and once they got in his head, he was just shook.
You know, I think if you're a Clemson fan, you're really encouraged about the depth of running back, because Lynn J. Dixon had 79 yards on 11 carries, and they didn't have to rely on the big horse Travis Etienne as much. And then you look at that receiving core of Clemson, and you and I have talked about that depth all year leading up to this year. It showed against A&M. And, you know, when you look at Trevor Lawrence's numbers, they don't jump out at you, but this is what a championship quarterback has to do. He has to have those, you know, I kind of call it your baseline game, I guess, basically. He had that. He was still impressive, but it just proves how many offensive weapons Trevor Lawrence has to pick from, and it was an impressive performance by Clemson.
Well, it was a workmanlike performance, to use that.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yes, it was a workmanlike performance, and I thought Mike Elko had a good defensive plan for Texas A&M. There's so many weapons for Clemson that you have to cover, and I thought they did a good job with Justin Ross, matching him up in man-to-man, but shading him with the safety over the top. I thought they did a good job covering across the middle also, but there's just so much speed on that Clemson wide receiving core. And then, you know, you mentioned Travis Etienne. He wasn't the stud in the running game that we're accustomed to, but he had over 50 yards and caught 4 balls, 4 key catches out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. You know, moved the chains for him. So now there's another weapon you got to throw to coming out of the backfield. Now you got to cover the running back.
Yeah.
So it's a very hard scheme to defend, and they weren't clicking on all cylinders. However, they executed well. They did not make mistakes. And once the flow of that game got going, I think they knew they could lean on their defense. They knew their defense was going to carry the day, and all they had to do was hit their spots, not make mistakes, and the chances would come. And once A&M's defense was on the field for the majority of the second quarter, heading into the third quarter, they started wearing down and they started leaking touchdowns.
Let's move on to a game, and I hope everybody got a chance to watch LSU Texas, because it was as entertaining as we thought it would be. And you and I talked about the quarterback matchup between Joe Burrow and Sam Ehlinger, and it lived up to the hype. And both quarterbacks had fantastic nights in the game, and a game that pit two heavyweights, one from the Big 12, one from the SEC, and they rarely play each other, and it lived up to the billing.
Well, both quarterbacks were the stars of the show, without a doubt. And Sam Ehlinger, I mean, I don't think we were shocked by him having a good day. We talked last week about that he had to be balanced, that he was going to have to be the running game for his team, and he was. He had led the team with 60 yards. I don't think I would have said he would throw for 400 yards against that Clemson secondary, but once that game got going, it felt like a Big 12 game. You know, the chances were there, and the ball got rolling, man, in the second half. Those offenses were hitting on all cylinders, and, you know, we talked extensively last week about Joe Brady and the LSU passing game, and I thought it really came to fruition. And Sam Ehlinger, he never even had to get to his check down. I thought that Texas would have them locked down well enough that he would have to go to his check down more, but he didn't have to. He was hitting that second route, and those post routes were just killing Texas. Poor Kalen Barnes, he was trying to get down quick enough to cut off the receiver. He couldn't make it in time. It was that opposite corner spot, John. Remember we talked last week, they had to rotate their corners. They were still trying to figure out who was going to take that other corner position at Texas. Well, it kind of hurt them in this game because they had to keep bringing bodies in, and nobody could really ever get in a groove. But, yeah, these offenses lit it up, and I'm not foreshadowing here, John, but as much as we all love this game, I hope this is a game that ages well. I hope in December this game feels as important, and we can look back and think about how great it was after we see the full bodies of work of both of these teams.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing, too, to me, is the psychological aspects of both teams. You know, it was a tough loss for Texas, but it's not a loss that's going to kill you. It's a loss that, you know, they weren't embarrassed. It was, it was at home, but there's still time for Texas to recover. And I think you bring up a good point. We want this game to have some life when we get into December. For LSU, you know, I'm thinking what a huge psychological lift this is for the Tigers. I mean, they go into Austin, Texas and get in a shootout and are able to prevail. And now, feeling this good, they've got Northwestern State on Saturday. Then they go to Vanderbilt after that and then get a week off before they host Utah State, and Utah State's not a bad team either. But their next three games can really set the tone for LSU, and it's just when they get in the teeth of their schedule in October, what kind of team this LSU team is and where their confidence level is.
Well, they got a month, like you said, to get ready for Florida. And what I think they're going to do, John, I mean, let's talk about this. I know we love the Texas game, but let's talk a little big picture here. So the passing game is obviously working right now for LSU.
Right.
And what they're doing, they're learning the system. Joe Burrow is obviously as cool as a cucumber in the system he's in right now. And I think the running game will start picking up. Edwards-Helaire will get in a rhythm. I think the offense is right where you want them to be. They got to find the balance, though, of they want to go fast, and they want to get on the field, and they want as many snaps as possible, but they got to find the balance to give their defense a little bit of breathers. When you run those hurry-up spread offenses, it's that great mystery of how do you balance pace versus giving your defense a breath.
You're right.
And I know Ed Orgeron said after the game he didn't think that was a factor. He's a head coach. He makes a lot more money than I do. I disagree with him. I think that was a little bit of a factor at the end of that game. LSU's defense, we know how talented they are. I don't think that they've all of a sudden got a lot worse. They're just playing a lot more snaps and the game's faster. So I think it'd be a smart little test to try to find the balance in the next month for that offense, because they're good on both sides of the ball. And Orgeron's also got to keep trusting this passing game. You know, that 3rd and 17 call, that was a gutsy call. And it's funny because earlier in the day I watched a little bit of Les Miles in Kansas, and 3rd and 19, Les Miles, what's he doing? He's running a draw. You know, and that was the LSU offense for the last 15 years. You know, later on that evening, 3rd and 17, you run a route across, the middle, cut off your linebacker, beat the corner in one-on-one coverage, and you're gone for a touchdown that seals a win. So the offense is great, and as long as Ed trusts his assistants, they're going to score. But trying to find that balance could be really important for them in the next month.
Texas has Rice this weekend, and then they begin the teeth of their Big 12 season September 21st, hosting Oklahoma State. So let's move on, Anthony, and we have an ongoing theme. It's so far in this season is, what fan base would you rather be, Florida State or Tennessee? Let's start with the Vols, because this is a game against BYU. You and I circled and thought, okay, this may not go well for the Vols, and it didn't. And so now, where does Tennessee go?
That's $1 million question, isn't it?
And that's why I'm asking you.
Well, I don't know if I can give $1 million answer, but I might give you a $20 answer. I don't know. You got to look at yourself in the mirror first. Look, there's so many problems, John, off the field, on the field. You can talk about talent all you want to, or the lack thereof, but there's 2 times of the season. There's the time to get talent and the time to develop talent. Right now is not the time to get talent, so you got to develop what you got. And this coaching staff, for whatever reason, is having a hard time translating with these players how to develop what they want them to do. Tennessee played hard. They fought for Jeremy Pruitt. They dominated this game. However, as they let BYU hang around, self-doubt crept in on this team. And at the end of the game, they were trying not to lose instead of trying to win. That 3rd down play that they gave up that set BYU up in the field position with under 20 seconds left, that was an egregious error. And I know fans have blamed it on the coaching. They were in prevent defense. They had 3 high safeties. I don't know what else you want them to do. The corner cannot wave the receiver by him. And then the safety, he took a bad angle. That's technique. Now, technique is developed by coaching. So it is all, circular, but they have bad technique, and they're not in their spots. And now you got to worry about them laying down. There's already, me and you, I threw the crazy scenario last week at you about Philip Fulmer. Yeah. Now there's 72 articles about it all in Knoxville this week. So anybody's talking about. He's in his coaching gear in the post-game press conference on Saturday. So they got to see. They got UT Chattanooga. I'm interested to see if Jaron Garantano is still going to be the guy for all 60 minutes this week. Pruitt says he's going to try to ride with him. I think they probably will ride with him, but he's got to show improvement because their run coming up, 1-6, is looking very likely for this team. And I just don't know at this point if they can fix it, John. I mean, they can't block. The offensive line's having problems. I actually thought they ran the ball pretty well. And
I did too.
They ran that edge well. They sealed the edge. They ran off tackle. They had a bunch of stretch plays that they ran that were successful, which is great. But when you're playing SEC competition with the outside linebackers that you're going to see in defensive ends that can set that edge, that's not going to work. So there's more questions than answers right now.
But Tennessee Chattanooga is coming in, and to Neyland, an in-state FCS team, they've got to come in with a little confidence that they're facing an 0-2 Tennessee team that is really down psychologically, and this is really scary if I'm a Tennessee fan. Where their head is going into this game against Chattanooga, because I think Chattanooga is going to be pretty pumped and thinking that there's a puncher's chance for them to maybe not only win the game, which that always seems like outside the realm of possibility, but they at least could scare the living hell out of the Volunteer fans and the football team.
Well, I think this program right now and this fan base is in such disarray and just hopelessness that anything less than a 40-point win is going to feel like a defeat.
Yeah, that's what
they have to. Right, they can't just win this game. They're going to win the game. They can't just win this game 31-3, 35-7. They need a 40-point feel-good moment to kind of make people smile a little bit, because the fans know what I just said. They know the schedule they've got coming up. They know that a lot of losses are on the horizon, and it might be till mid-November or later before they get another win. So they need a feel-good moment. They can get a feel-good moment, but they've also need to work on some things. This offense has a lot of work to do, and defensively, they've got a lot of work to do with staying in positions and minding their gaps. So it's going to be a coaching clinic, John. A lot of coaching needs to be done in this game.
And, of course, the other side, Florida State fans, yes, they got the win over ULM in Tallahassee in overtime by a point. It took a missed extra point for Florida State to prevail. The one thing that's glaring to me, Anthony, about Florida State is their inability to stop the run, especially those runs between the tackles. That reared its ugly head from the get-go against BYU, and it showed again against ULM. And if they don't get that solved, especially this week, man, I'm thinking it's another long year for the Seminoles.
You hit the nail on the head, John. That interior defensive line cannot keep getting pushed off the ball the way that they are. I mean, Louisiana Monroe, now, you and I know Louisiana Monroe is a good football team. They are for their level. They're a good team. And they've got a quarterback in Caleb Evans that's going to make an NFL camp next year. Yeah. He's a talented athlete. So the fact that Louisiana Monroe was able to score, in the 30s on them in regulation, it's surprising, but I don't think it's shocking. But the fact that they were able to run the ball between the tackles and get 126 yards by their leading running back, Josh Johnson, that is shocking, and that's a terrible sign. This was the same formula as the week before Boise State. They came out quick on offense, hitting on all cylinders. Second half comes, offense makes some turnovers. Louisiana Monroe capitalizes. FSU's defense gets gassed. And without Cam Akers just having a Superman-like performance, they lose that game if he's not in the backfield doing what he did.
Yeah.
Can I throw out a coaching scenario from this game?
Go for it.
Because this has not been talked about enough. Okay. So let me take you. It's the fourth quarter, under 2 minutes to go. Florida State has the ball. It's 3rd and 2 on their own 33. They throw a screen pass, try to get the ball out in space. Louisiana Monroe makes the tackle behind the line of scrimmage. Both teams have all 3 timeouts. Now, as soon as Louisiana Monroe makes the tackle behind the line of scrimmage, Florida State calls a timeout. It is now 4th and 5 with 1:21 left, and you just gave your opponent an extra timeout, and they're sitting on all their timeouts. What the hell are you doing, John? What is going on here?
Yeah.
And after the game, Willie Taggart, he was asked about it, and he said, we wanted to give our team time to get ready for the punt block because we knew they were going to send punt blocks, so we needed max protect. We wanted to make sure we had the right formation. Okay, that's a good answer. However, wouldn't you want to see what kind of pressure they were showing before you call the timeout and talk about how to block it?
You would think.
I mean, and not only that, wouldn't you want to let a little bit of time run off the clock before? Wouldn't you run the play clock down before you call your timeout?
Well,
like that, just
that would be the proper procedure.
Coaching decisions like that, yes, coaching decisions like that just boggle my mind. And this team is not improving. It's the same thing with Tennessee right now. The coaching is just not there. And the difference with Tennessee, I think Jeremy Pruitt has the ability to get it there. I don't know if he will, but I think he has the ability. I do not think Willie Taggart has the ability to get it there. I think he has good assistants, particularly I think Kendall Browse is a good offense coordinator, but they have no leadership. And this looks like a team with no leadership. And everyone's waiting on someone to do something. Luckily, Cam Akers did lots of things, which is why they won, but that's not going to win them many ball games.
No, it's not. And, things are kind of crazy right now in Tallahassee. Anthony, let's talk about some games coming up. But before we do that, we want to remind you that obviously you want to buy tickets to these games. And if you do, there's one source from the internet that you want to tap into. And Anthony, what is that? Do you remember?
I'm looking at it. I'm actually looking right now for tickets on it to Columbia. It's SeatGiant.com, John.
There you go. And what letters do you type in for? It's SDH at checkout. And if you do, it helps you, like Anthony, who's trying to purchase tickets right now, or it helps us. That's SeatGiant.com. We're going to talk games when we come back.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Rock at the What's Up Falcons podcast, and I'm joined with my boys. My boys in the house. Where you at?
Yeah. What up?
Oh, gee, and we have Q, and we have Hoop in the house.
Q's here, the most beloved guy in all of sports entertainment.
Indeed. Hey, y'all, we want to thank everyone for listening to us, and if you want to listen to some great Falcons information, check us out on the What's Up Falcons podcast. Right, fellas?
Right. Sir. Hey, we here every week, baby.
We keeping it real, so check us out. I'm there on Twitter. Holla. Peace.
Subscribe to the What's Up Falcons podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Listen to the What's Up Falcons podcast at whatsupfalcons.com.
The debrief is over. Time to preview the games as the CFB on OSG continues. Here's Anthony Goldman and John Wilkerson.
Okay, Anthony, let's start off with a Friday night matchup between North Carolina and Wake Forest. And the reason why I bring this up is I love this matchup between Wake and North Carolina because Wake has really surprised me the way they've opened up their offense. And Jamie Newman right now leads the conference in the ACC in passing and total offense. And then you got the legend of Sam Howell. It's a great quarterback matchup. I think a lot of points are going to be scored in this game. It's just really if one of these defense can make a big stop, I think it's going to be the difference in this game.
Who would have thought that North Carolina at Wake Forest is one of the better, more intriguing games in college football this week? I mean, it really is. This is one of the most exciting games I'm looking forward to. And you hit it with the quarterbacks, John. I mean, Sam Howell, the legend, just continues to grow. The precision just on his passes have been unbelievable, particularly late in games. Everybody saw the highlight of Miami where he threw the touchdown in the corner, but don't forget, John, they converted a 4th and 18 on that drive.
Yeah.
You know, and he had been sacked back-to-back plays. So that shows you, for one, the confidence that this coaching staff has in Sam Howell to execute in the crunch, and also just the looseness he plays with to be able to shake that off. I mean, a true freshman, you've been sacked back-to-back, and you're in a 2-minute drill, and your team's down, and you come through like that.
Yeah,
that's impressive. That's very impressive.
That was impressive.
And then you go on the other side. I mean, you talked about Newman and what he's done at Wake Forest. I've really been intrigued by Dave Clawson's use of Newman in this offense. This offense has been playing at a pretty good pace. They're getting the ball out pretty quick, and they're doing fast passes to get him comfortable early. I think you're going to see that in this game, too. You mentioned the defenses. Both these offenses are going to be fun to watch. It's the quarterback battle that we like. I think the difference in this game is going to be North Carolina's defensive front. They have quietly played over their heads the last 2 weeks. The pressure that they were able to put on Jake Bentley really surprised me. And then last week, I know Miami, they have their issues on offense with the true freshman at tackle. But once again, they were able to pressure the quarterbacks a lot of times organically without sending a blitz. I think that's going to be important. Now, Newman can run the ball. He can get some extra yardage, so you can't lose containment. But I think they can contain him enough and make enough plays to win the game. I'm going to go North Carolina. Now, I'm going to preface this, John, by saying last 2 weeks I went against North Carolina. So now that I'm picking on the win, they're guaranteed to lose. But I'm going to pick North Carolina to win this game, and a close one. I'm thinking maybe 28-24.
Yeah, Mac Brown right now is showing you the middle finger. Let's stay in. By the way, I like North Carolina too. I think Wake Forest right now is just giving up way too many points and putting too much pressure on that offense to perform, which it has. And I never thought I would see Wake Forest as a wide open offense like they do. It's very interesting. I want to stay in the ACC because Clemson and Syracuse play at the Carrier Dome, a game you and I kind of penciled as, this is the stretch of where Clemson where their season was going to be kind of a make or break, I guess, the best way to put it. And of course, they handled Texas A&M at home, and now they get to go to Syracuse, who, has the luster been knocked off this game after after being pounded by Maryland, and in a game that you and I kind of foresaw back in July that the possibility of this might happen, and it did, but I didn't expect the score to be that big. Anthony McFarland was just a man among boys in that game. You and I were texting back and forth about that on Saturday. But to me, it's going to be a fired up Carrier Dome. I just, Syracuse has got so many problems in their linebacking as far on defense. And, the offensive line has got some issues too. Tommy DeVito has been running for his life. And I just see this as a Clemson blowout.
Well, look, everybody, media being, not you and I would say, but most of the media were circling this game and talking about this would be Clemson's toughest test. Now, I remember in our ACC preview, we didn't agree with that. And both of us thought this could be a good Syracuse team, and they still can be. Season's not dead. I'm not counting them off. However, I think people didn't realize how much senior leadership this team had lost. And I'm not talking about Eric Dungy. Forget Eric Dungy. Think about all the guys on defense that they lost, John. All the guys that were 3-year starters. And think about the guys that they lost on the offensive line. It's going to take this team a little bit to get their sea legs under them. And this is not the time to be learning on the job when you've got the best team in college football coming to your house. The problem Syracuse had, you highlighted them. Biggest problem to me offensively, they can't pass protect. I didn't think Tommy DeVito had a bad game, but he was running for his life against a mediocre at best Maryland pass rush. I think Maryland only got 4 sacks, but he was being flushed out of the pocket just about every other play. So that's going to be something that they're going to need to design rollouts, design quick drop-offs. They're going to have to design around that because they cannot build him a pocket in this game, especially after what we saw Clemson do to Kellen Mond. On the other side of that, the Syracuse defense, they gave up a lot of big plays in the passing game. They could not stop the run, though. And if you're Travis Etienne in this backfield of Clemson, you're licking your chops right now because the holes that were being split in this defensive line, they were 4 to 5 yards wide. This is going to be Syracuse is going to be fired up. They're going to play with a lot of emotion. They will keep it close for about a quarter, but this is going to get away from them. This is a 41-14 type of game. Clemson can kind of name their score, but I don't think Clemson has pedaled to the metal right now. I think Clemson is picking their spots, and they're building up. So this is going to be a methodical beatdown.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it is. Some wind is going to come out of Syracuse's sails early, and that the Carrier Dome, which is normally loud, so loud that you can't think, will be pretty quiet. I agree after the first quarter, so yeah, you and I kind of forecasted this back in July when we did the previews for the ACC, and I think you've put it very succinctly that a lot of leadership from last year is gone at Syracuse, and it's a tough stretch right now for the Orange. The other game that really intrigues me, Anthony, is out west, USC at BYU. I think Clay Helton may have gotten a little bit of a reprieve with the sudden resignation of Lynn Swann as athletic director. And it seems to be, this seems to be the year of the true freshman quarterback, because Kedon Slovis played really well in his first start for Southern Cal. And everybody's kind of comfortable with him under center. So, and of course, BYU's coming off that great win in Knoxville. I really look forward to watching this game. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch in Provo.
There's a lot we're going to learn from this game. I'm intrigued as well. And, with USC, you mentioned the Lynn Swann situation. It is kind of interesting right now that I feel like the temperature around this program has went from about 45 degrees to about 88 degrees in the span of a week.
Yeah.
People were just waiting on the other shoe to drop, and now that they had a good performance, people are starting to talk about Pac-12 South and what this team can do. I would say don't knee-jerk in either direction. Let's let this play out and see what we got here. We still know how talented USC is. I mean, this is still the most talented roster in the South. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
I would say in the Pac-12 South, they're the most talented roster. Now, Utah is the best coached team in the Pac-12 South. So that's going to be the dynamic. But Kedon Slovis, he played fantastic. Mm-hmm. He played really well in this game. He got rid of the ball quickly. This was not your Sam Howell type of performance either. Sam Howell was a guy we were excited about, but we knew he had that ability in him because of highly touted he was coming out of high school.
Right.
Slovis was a 3-star.
Yeah.
Slovis was a guy that people knew he was good, but unless you followed him regionally, he wasn't a name that you were circling that you couldn't wait to see on the field. So this is a really good performance by him, and his mechanics are good enough that I think he can be a very good quarterback. But we also need to wait and see with USC. We need to wait and see what this team does. BYU cannot move the football. I like their quarterback. They're good on both offensive and defensive lines. They can't move the ball. Their secondary is about at the level Stanford's is, which means that they're not very fast on the break. They can be beat in zone coverage. They play a very big gap, a soft zone between the linebackers and the safeties. And I think that's where Slovis, again, will have a lot of success. I think they'll win this game, but I'm interested to see how USC wins this game. People are going to expect them to win this game by 20 points. I don't think it's going to be that impressive. I think they'll win this game 31-14, 31-10, something like that. They're the better team, but this is going to be a learn-as-we-go process with USC and what happens with Clay Hill.
Of course, after BYU, the Trojans host Utah, go to Washington and Seattle, and then go to Notre Dame. We kind of forecasted that stretch of games from Stanford to Notre Dame in our Pac-12 preview, and kind of the make-or-break era for or time for Clay Helton. He's 2-0 right now in that era, in that stretch of games. I'm sorry, he's got the one win. I've already penciled in the win over BYU, but I think USC is going to win it. So they could be 2-0 after that stretch, heading into Utah. And if they're 3-2 even, I think that's a tremendous accomplishment, and for Southern Cal, and something I don't think you and I expected.
No, it would be, I think if you look at it on paper, it would be impressive, but I think, again, and hear me out on this,
yeah,
I think it's going to be a disappointment to a lot of fans and media because it's almost like the double-edged sword, John. You know, you lose your quarterback going into Stanford, and everybody says, USC, write them off. This is the beginning of the end for Clay Helton. They're going to go down. And then you have an impressive performance against a Stanford team that probably isn't as athletic defensively as they've been in the past. But now people are saying, oh, my goodness, look at Slovis, this kid at quarterback. He's throwing everywhere. USC, they're scoring points. This could be, maybe they're on to something here. So if they don't deliver now, you're almost setting yourself back for failure. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think 3-2 is very likely. I mean, if they go 3-2, that means they win one of the games of Utah, at Washington, at Notre Dame. That's not anything to scoff at. Those are good teams. But I think the disappointment will be set up because of the overreaction from the Stanford win.
Gotcha. Hey, Anthony, I think it's time for lightning round.
Oh, man, I can't wait. And look, this is going to be a fun lightning round because there's not a lot of big headline games in college football, but there's a lot of good under-the-radar matchups, John. And that's what we thrive on.
That's
what
right.
you and I thrive on.
That's right.
All right, so let's do it. Lightning round, starting off. Kansas State heads down to Starkville to take on the Bulldogs of Mississippi State in the game that I'm looking forward to the most this weekend. John, you go first. What do you think?
This is a game I think it'll be an accomplishment if either offense scores over 20 points. But I like the Bulldogs in this game at Starkville. I'm going to say 17-10.
Tommy Stevens at Mississippi State has looked very good at quarterback,
yes,
throwing the ball really well. He and Osiris Mitchell have already made a dynamic duo in that passing game. I like Mississippi State as well. I am curious to see what Kansas State is going to look like offensively. They have scored a bunch of points in the last 2 weeks. They've obviously played Little Sisters of the Poor, so we'll see what happens when they play a legitimate defense. But I am intrigued to that, and I think Chris Kleiman has his team very confident. This is going to be a close game, I think. I think this is going to be a 31-24, 24-17 touchdown type of game. But I'm going to go with the Bulldogs as well. I'm right there with you. Okay, let's move on. I want to hit on this game really quickly. Ohio State opens conference play against Indiana. They can name their score, right?
Yes, they can. Ohio State's been really impressive to me to begin the season. And name your score. Ohio State wins in Bloomington.
I agree with you. Let's go another game. This is a rivalry game that doesn't get played enough. Pittsburgh at Penn State. Does little brother have any chance of upsetting big brother?
And shameless plug here, we talked to Pat Bostic, the radio analyst for the Pitt Panthers radio network on the Trophy Game show, talking about this Pitt-Penn State rivalry. And, I don't think they do have a chance. I like the receiver matchup there, but I just think Penn State's got way too many weapons. And Pittsburgh they've got some nice parts on offense. They're just really challenged there right now.
Yeah, both teams are passing the ball really well. Neither team has really found a good running game yet, which for Penn State, they need to get that going. Yeah, they need to figure that out because they got Maryland on a Friday night coming up soon. But for this game, I'm with you. Penn State, they'll get the win. Moving on, let's go upset alert here. I think this is an upset alert, and I want to see your thoughts. I'm not going to say they win it, but Air Force goes to Colorado with the Buffaloes coming off that emotional Nebraska win. Are you with me that this is an upset alert game?
I would say the light would be on, but I just think Colorado will probably prevail in this one. I think the telltale sign will be if Air Force can control the clock and control tempo, and if they can do that, then I think you start sounding the upset alarm. But Colorado's had one really impressive win over their in-state rival, and then playing a Nebraska team that is better, getting the win the way they did at home with that field goal. or with the missed field goal by Nebraska. So I'm going to go Colorado on this one, but I think alarms might sound sometime during the game.
I'm with you. I think Air Force is going to give them some problems, especially defensively, keeping them in gap placement. Colorado will win this game because of the big plays, though. All right, moving on. The Alabama Crimson Tide head over to Columbia, South Carolina, where the last time they were there, it didn't go so well for them. Steven Garcia had the game of his life. Freshman quarterback now for South Carolina getting this game. Do we see a repeat, or does Alabama do what we all expect them to do?
I really think Alabama will do what we expect them to do. Obviously, South Carolina had a great performance against Charleston Southern, and they needed that psychologically. But I'm sure that Alabama defense is going to have, some wrinkles that it's going to confuse the heck out of Helinski. And I just like Alabama in this game. They're so well prepared.
Yeah, Alabama win this game big. This Alabama defense, I think, is very special. I think that they are potentially the best defense they've had in about 3 years, which says a lot when they're ranked number one in defense every year. But this defense, to me, is one of the better ones we've seen in recent history. Alabama get this win. Let's see how they run the ball. They do need to figure out the running game, John. They're still working on it. Najee Harris, he's got to start hitting the hole better. So we'll see what they do there, but they will get this win, I'm pretty sure. All right, let's go USC. We already kind of talked about this, but we expect them to win at Utah, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to another big brother, little brother rivalry, which College Game Day is going to be at. Iowa at Iowa State. John, the Cyclones, last time we seen them, didn't look so good. Took them triple overtime to get to 1-0. They're coming off a bye week. Can they get the upset over Big Brother at home?
I think it's going to be tough. I love the quarterback matchup and on this one. And, of course, shameless plug here again. We talked to the voice of Iowa State in our trophy game show about the Cy-Hawk Trophy. And, I think Iowa State, they haven't had the Cy-Hawk Trophy in 5 years. And they've had a week off. And I tend to like Iowa State in this game. Obviously, they had some issues on offense in the opener. Hopefully that's been corrected. They've had a couple of weeks to do that. But I'm going to go with Iowa State in this one. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
A lot of the problems Iowa State had week one was some fundamental flaws. They had new guys that running wrong routes, weren't on the same page as their quarterback, maybe not picking up the end blocks. They'll clean that up this week. I think that they just don't have the explosiveness to stretch the field that they did last year with Montgomery and Akeem Butler. Iowa State will play hard. Iowa is the better team, though. I think they win this game. It'll be close. I think it'll be a field goal game, but I'm going to go Hawkeyes in this one. Let's talk about the Colorado State Rams heading to Arkansas to take on your boys, the Razorbacks. Licking their wounds a little bit. Can they find some offense and get a win this week, John?
Well, Kellen Mond is starting, and the running game has kind of surprised me. They haven't really showed out any. It was pretty evident in that Ole Miss game. I'm going to have to go with my Razorbacks because I think they're still hurting from that loss last year in Fort Collins, a game that got away from them, and it's at home. So I think it's going to be a game that's going to make me and other Razorback fans nervous because I don't think Arkansas is going to be able to put this team away, but I think they win either by a touchdown or a field goal.
They got to get that running game finished. You're absolutely right. I will say that Arkansas's defense has been a little overachieving. I've been impressed with them so far. So they need to keep that going. I'm going to go Razorbacks as well, but I think it's close. This is a game that could potentially be interesting. I don't think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to it, but I am. North Texas, and you know why, because Mason Fine at quarterback, my guy, heads to Cal to take on the Cal Bears coming off that really weird/big upset over Washington last week that ended at like 5 a.m. our time.
Yeah.
Cal's got a trip to Ole Miss coming up. Could there be a little look ahead in this game?
There could be. North Texas's defense concerns me, though. They gave up a lot of points to SMU. They may be looking past North Texas, and Mason Fine might be able to make some plays, but I think Cal's just got too much going for him right now. Cal probably wins this one. Cal wins this one by, let's say, a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cal's going to win this game. Their defense is very, very stout. I do think, though, Mason Fine will have a good game, particularly in the first half.
Yeah.
They'll score 28, but Cal's going to score 41-45. North Texas can't stop anybody. Let's go now. The Florida Gators head up to Lexington, take on the Kentucky Wildcats, who Sawyer Smith, your turn at quarterback. We know all the streak and the numbers they broke last year, but what are their chances of winning 2 in a row against the Gators?
Probably not good, although I think this is going to be a sneakily good game. And, there's always the what kind of offense are we going to see out of Florida? I mean, it's always the kind of the $64,000 question. Yeah, I like Florida, but I don't think Kentucky is going to make it easy. And if Felipe Franks is focused in on the whole game, Florida could probably win this one handily. But I'm not so confident in that. But I think Florida gets it done.
This game, to me, looks a lot like the Miami game that Florida played 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is a game that the front seven of Kentucky is going to give them problems. Florida's going to need to be disciplined. They have to be better at not turning over the football than they were against Miami. I think they win this game, but I do think Sawyer Smith is going to have a better performance than a lot of people think he's going to have. They'll win this game, but I think it's going to be a 28-20 touchdown, maybe 8-point type of game. Let's move on now to Florida State, going to Virginia, Charlottesville. Maybe one of the more interesting games of the weekend. What do you see happening in this one?
To be honest with you, I think Virginia wins this one pretty handily. I'm just not sold on what Florida State can do defensively. I think Bryce Perkins is going to have plenty of holes to run if he decides to. And those backs from Virginia, one of those guys, and they use at least 6 running backs in a game, but one of those guys may have the game of his life if the defensive line issues prevail for Florida State. I look for Bryce Perkins to have a huge game in this one. Virginia defense is as physical as any defense in college football, and I think the key for them is to contain Cam Akers. If they can do that, I think Virginia wins this one and wins this one handily.
Yeah, I think Florida State better score whenever they can because I think Virginia will dominate time of possession in this game. Mm-hmm. And I think that they will wear down Florida State's defensive line. They will win this game. Cam Akers, it's going to be all up to him. He'll do what he can, but I think they lose it 31-21. I'm going to go UVA in this one as well. TCU goes up to take on Purdue. This is a very interesting game. TCU going to West Lafayette, particularly after Purdue kind of got their sea legs on offense last week. What do you think about this one, John? Because I think this really could go either way.
This one's really hard for me to forecast because you're right. Purdue kind of found their way last week. And, for me, TCU is still kind of a mystery. This is a tough game for me to pick. But I guess if I'm going to go with anybody, I have to go with Purdue because they're home and they've kind of helped themselves offensively.
Yeah, Purdue's offense right now is clicking on all cylinders. TCU is a very odd team. They don't know what they want to do at quarterback.
Yeah.
They can't figure out who they want to play. They can't figure out what kind of scheme they want to run. They're confused, and they better get unconfused because they're going to need to score some points. I do like this TCU defense. I'm going to go with TCU just because I know their defense, and I know Gary Patterson will have his team ready when he needs to.
True.
And he's going to need to in this game. I'm going to go TCU, but it's going to be close. I'm going to go a field goal type of game. I don't know if that's 31-28 or 27-24, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to go TCU, but I don't feel great about it.
Duly
all
noted.
right, moving on. I feel like I have to mention this game, but we know what's going to happen. Oklahoma goes to the Rose Bowl, UCLA. This is going to be name your score, right?
It is, and wouldn't it be interesting if roles have been reversed as far as coaching hot seats? If Clay Helton his seat has gotten a little cooler, and Chip Kelly's is now starting to warm up. Could that be?
Yeah, that could be very well. I do think you have to start wondering how much credit does Chip Kelly get for that Oregon program now, because he inherited a pretty good team from Mike Bellotti. So
that's right.
Maybe Mike Bellotti was the architect in Eugene, but either way, Oklahoma's going to be awesome. Jalen Hurts will have like 600 yards and 5 incompletions, and then he'll complain about how off sync they were on offense. Okay, moving on. Texas Tech goes to Tucson, takes on Arizona in another really interesting game that we're going to learn a lot about Texas Tech in this game. We don't really know what they are yet. Matt Wells, he's running the same offense Cliff Kingsbury ran, but he doesn't want to. So
interesting, isn't it?
How is that going to portray against Arizona?
And Arizona is a team that I can't figure out at all. After losing to Hawaii in week 0, and so I tend to lean toward Texas Tech because they kind of know who they are, and it may not be what Matt Wells wants, but they kind of know who they are. Look, Arizona gave up 41 points to Northern Arizona and on Saturday, and that really concerns me. That means Texas Tech could probably name their score. It's just whether they can stop Arizona. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech in this one because they kind of know who they are.
I do think that the quarterback battle is interesting in this game.
Yeah.
Khalil Tate, we know what he can do, but he hasn't really been allowed to do what he can do yet. I don't think that's going to change in this game either. I like Texas Tech in this game. I do think Arizona will give them a game for a little bit. Because it's at home, they're going to be excited. They're going to be fired up. But Alex Bowman, he's going to throw for at least 400 yards in this game and probably 4 or 5 touchdowns. They're going to light them up. They've ran the ball pretty decently, Texas Tech has also. So keep an eye on Ahmad Shine. See what he can do at running back. But I think the Red Raiders get a win on the road in this one. And that is your Week 3 lightning round, John.
And we appreciate you listening to the College Football Debrief on whatever podcatcher you listen to, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Spotify. And we appreciate you listening to us. And Anthony, I look forward to reconvening next week to talk about the games and look forward to Week 4 of the college football season. Hard to believe we're about a third of the way through.
Yeah, don't remind me. I do know people are kind of down that there might not be a headline game this weekend, but there's a lot of good football out there. You just got to know where to look.
That is true. So, for Anthony Goldman, I'm John Wilkerson. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the games, everyone. The OSG Sports app is up and running on your Android or iPhone. Install the OSG Sports app and listen to our podcast from college football, soccer, and lacrosse. What are you waiting for? Get the OSG Sports app today.